Okay, so first I just want you to see that here on my desktop I have a folder called Dev C++ or CPP files, and that's where I'm going to create this project. So I wanted you to see where it's located first, and now I'm going to go into Dev C++. Alright, so what we're used to doing is creating a file new and then choosing source file. But what we're going to do now is we're going to create a project, and it's going to be a console app. We want to make sure we choose C++ project, which is likely the default. And since I'm working with the rectangle class, I'm going to call this rectangle project. And what I want to be able to do is I want to put it on the desktop in the folder I just showed you, right? Oh my goodness. Right here. And I'm going to create a folder for it just to keep everything organized. And I'd recommend that you do the same. And then I'm going to just save it in this folder I created. And you'll notice that the extension is DEV, and that's just a Dev C++ project. So I'm going to choose Save. And when I do this, it actually creates a main program for me. Okay, so I just opened up this tab right here that has the code from the rectangle class in it, because I'm going to talk about how we break this apart into 3 files. So the first thing that you have, and this gets created for you automatically, is a main program, and I'm just going to expand this so you can see that the main program is here in the rectangle project. This is not saved yet, so we can make some changes to it, and we can actually change the name if we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, oh, we already have include IOStream, right? I'm going to do this. And I'm just going to take this comment out. This is just another way to, write a main program. So I'm just going to make it look like what we're used to seeing. And this curly brace can go here or it can go down here. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so now for our rectangle class, what was located in the main program was this code right here. So I'm just going to copy it and I'm going to paste it right here. And I've got an extra return 0, and we don't need a system pause. Okay, so this file is just our main program. We are going to have to include the rectangle class in this, but I need to actually create the rectangle class first. So what's going to happen here, you could just do a file and a save as if you want. If you don't do it before you try and compile, it's going to ask you to save it anyhow. And I'm not going to call it main.cpp. I'm going to call it rectangle driver. A driver is just a main program whose sole purpose is to test the class. So there's the name of the file, rectangle driver. Alright, so now I'm going to come over here, and now I'm going to do this, file new, but this time now, because we're in a project, you'll see an option down here called class. And I'm going to choose that, and I'm going to put in the name of my class is going to be rectangle. When I type the name in, you'll notice down here it's creating 2 files, rectangle.cpp and rectangle.h. And I'll show you what's going to go in these files in a minute. If you want to, you can choose to create a constructor. So if you're making a class from scratch, that might be helpful. It just makes an empty default constructor. That's all it does. You have to actually fill the code in. So since I already have that written, Well, you know what? I'll just choose this and show you what it looks like. Let's see. And you'll notice that there's a check mark on here that says add to current project, and that's what we want. And you'll see what it does is it creates this rectangle.h, which is our class, where our class is defined, our class definition. It puts a macro guard around this for you automatically. And what this does is it will check to see if this name, rectangle underscore h, is defined in a table of things that have been included. If it's not defined, it will define it right here for you. And the end if is just part of the syntax for the if not defined. Now, if it does find it, it'll just bypass everything. And what this does is it ensures that you don't include this same code more than one time. So it prevents inclusions of, multiple inclusions of header files, and it's considered good programming practice. So I'm just going, this is just my code that I had before that I'm kind of just copying and pasting from. So I'm just going to take all of this and copy it, and this guy is going to go in rectangle.h. We'll talk in a later module about protected. And you'll see because I chose create constructor, it put that default constructor in there for me. Okay, so there is what goes in the header file. And then in rectangle.cpp, you see it automatically includes rectangle.h, and here's the constructor it generated for you. So I just put that in there to show you, but I'm actually going to copy the constructor. So I'm going to come after main, and I'm going to copy all of the member function definitions. So these are all the functions. And that's what's going to go in this file. So now I'm just going to close this because I was just using it to copy and paste. Okay. All right, so we've got the header file where the class declaration goes. It's surrounded by a macro guard to make sure it doesn't get included more than one time. Here is, we include rectangle.h in rectangle.cpp, and here's the code for all of our functions. And then in our driver program or our main program, the one thing that's missing now is I am going to have to add an include statement. And if you want to, you can just copy this. So both CPP files, the driver and rectangle.cpp, have to include the header file in order for this to work. Now, if I try to compile or run it at this point, it's going to prompt me to save rectangle.h, so I'll do that. And it's going to prompt me to save rectangle.cpp. Okay, so my message, see out not declared in this scope. Oh, that's a good message to show you because I am using cout in this file. I also have to include IOStream and using namespace standard. Okay. Now you'll notice here when we include rectangle.h, it's enclosed in double quotes, and that's just telling us to look for this file in the current folder that we're working in where our project is. And when it's in angle brackets, it's telling it to look for where that file is in the default location for libraries in C++. Okay, so I just did compile, and now I'm going to run, and there's our program. All right, so generally when we work with classes, we break it into 3 files. This gives us the ability to reuse it. We can have these 2 rectangle files for our class, and we can use them with any main program that we want. So it allows for code reuse. Breaking it apart into separate files also allows for the implementation or all of these functions to be hidden from a user, so they don't get to see the code and they don't get to change the code, and they don't have to. They know what functions are available based on the header file. They know they've got 2 constructors, one with a default constructor, one with 2 parameters, set length and set width, get length and get width, get area and display. So they know that that's what they have access to, and that's fine. So one last thing I would like to show you here is here's the folder that I created, and in here you'll see the rectangle.h, rectangle.cpp, rectangle driver, and the project, right? All of those things. So when you are going to submit these projects to me, you're going to have to find this folder that has everything in it and right click it and choose send to a compressed zipped folder, and this right here is the file that you're going to need to submit.